brought to you by Penguin.
A Mother's Choice, written by Val Wood, read by Andover. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Chapter 1. November, 1897. The boy, trailing behind his mother, kicked a pebble into the road. It seemed as if they'd been travelling forever. They had, he was sure of it. Well, days anyway. "Come on, Jack." His mother's voice was irritable. "Don't dawdle." He wanted to ask where they were going, for she hadn't yet told him. But he held back. He could tell when his mother was in the mood for conversation, and she wasn't now. She seemed, well, not exactly sad, but not very happy. He'd had his 10th birthday last Saturday, the 8th of November, and his mother had announced that they were going to do something special. He had thought that the special thing was the tea party they'd had in Brighton that afternoon with Mr. Arthur Crawshaw, who was his best grown-up friend, and his mother's too. His mother and Mr. Crawshaw had both played at Bradshaw's that evening, and Jack had hung around the theatre until the show had finished. He and his mother had said goodbye to Mr. Crawshaw and gone back to their lodgings, and the next day his mother had started to pack their belongings. She had said they were moving on, but she didn't say where they were going. They left Brighton on Monday morning and took the train to London. He'd asked her if she would be playing in London, but she'd said she didn't know until she'd seen her agent. Playing, he thought, kicking another stone. It wasn't playing as he thought of playing. Playing was a game of cards or throwing dice. Playing was hopscotch, chalking squares on the ground and jumping in and out of them, making up your own rules and not caring if you cheated because it was your own game. His mother's playing was standing in the middle of a stage and singing to an audience, who sometimes clapped and sometimes didn't. He liked London and hoped they would stay for a while, and whilst his mother was visiting her agent, he walked by the Thames. The tide was out, and he saw a group of children down on the muddy shore, gathering up what he thought was rubbish, and jumped down to join them. They were not welcoming, but he was used to that. They gathered round him, hostile and threatening, saying that this was their patch, and everything on it was theirs for the keeping. He argued with them, telling them that they were wrong, and that the very ground they were standing on, as well as everything on it, belonged to the Crown. He knew that for a fact, he said, for Mr. Arthur Crawshaw had told him so, and he knew everything about anything. But in any case, he didn't want any of their rubbish. He'd only come down to pass the time whilst he waited for his mother. "Who's Mr. Arthur Crawshaw?" they mocked. "Never heard of him." "What?" he jeered back in his best imitation of Cockney. "You ain't heard of him? Oh, he's only the most celebrated Shakespearean actor of all time." He put his hands to his hips in a masterful pose and quoted, "I like this place, and willingly could waste my time in it." A group of youngsters, 3 boys and 2 girls, stared open-mouthed, and then as one they pounced and they all rolled in the mud, hitting but not hurting, until he heard his mother calling from above to get himself back up there right now. "Cheerio," he called, as he extricated himself from the fracas. "See you again." "Not if we see you first," they shouted back, and grinning went back to their rubbish collecting. His mother wasn't pleased to see the mud on his clothes, and brushed him down with a heavy hand before softly cuffing his ear. "Look at the mess you've made, and there's no time to wash your breeches." There was something in her voice that told him it wasn't only his muddy clothes that had put her in a foul humour, but something else. He murmured sorrowfully, "Sorry, it was just a bit of fun." She nodded, but didn't say anything more, and took his hand as they walked on. They caught a horse bus to King's Cross Station, and she went in to inquire about trains. He sighed as he waited, and rubbed his cold hands together, blowing on them to make them warmer. "So, where to now? Another—"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?